Um, one moment here. Let me figure this. I'm recording. I'm recording. Okay, fantastic. So, like I said, honor, pleasure. You spent several years on the police force or the state trooper force. Is that
Yes,
correct? Yeah,
yes. Let's see, I joined in June of 1980, right at 30 years and 6 months. I left in December 2010.
30 years. Wow. In your time, and I lived in the South before, so I was in the military. I served for like 6 years. I was an Army captain. So I appreciate your service. I appreciate my service a lot. In my time, I encountered um, some racism, not from directed towards me mostly, but I noticed a lot of the police. I mean, the military was segregated in different MOSs and jobs and all that stuff. Have you ever encountered that in the police force? I would imagine so, especially in the South.
Well, the thing that happened when I joined in 1980, the department had already been on a consent decree. And some of the earlier troopers that came on, I specifically did not have to experience it, but they experienced things such as the supervisors would go back and they would check their tickets to see how many tickets they wrote to white people, how many tickets they wrote to black people. There were some instances in they first started that they would actually go out and call in to the post and tell people that, well, they're using superlative, but they say, this black man stole a patrol car, you know, and this type thing. And when I came aboard, actually, we were in the consent decree, and they were looking to hire troopers. At one time, Alabama State Troopers was 37% African American.
Oh,
And it like I say, I never specifically experienced racism, from within the department. The only time I came close was when I got promoted to corporal. And I had a gentleman, white trooper, tell me, he said that because of the way that they went through and they banded people, and he was under the impression that they tried to uh, lower the scores to get more blacks in, but my score was above any cutoff line they had anyway, so it didn't really matter.
right, right. So he felt like it was a um, diversity promotion or something like that. So,
Right,
yeah,
and that's what it was. See, when the consent decree first started off, it only addressed hiring troopers, the entry level,
right.
and then later they expanded it because of people not having upward mobility. They expanded it to include promotions, and it included all ranks except the rank of major.
Okay, right. And you made major. You were the first state trooper to make major African American. Um, is that correct? Is that it?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
correct.
Great.
That's correct.
And I saw. I read somewhere that Obama nominated you for a position. Did you know Obama at all, or was this? Yeah.
No, back during the time when they had the oil spill in the Gulf, I had an opportunity to meet him briefly.
Mhm.
Um, the process for being nominated for U.S. Marshal, it actually starts at the local level.
Right.
Those are presidential appointments, and normally, what transpires is whichever party in your state submits names, nominations.
Okay.
And the Democratic Party in Alabama submitted my name.
Okay. Yeah. That I imagine that was the case, and then he kind of felt good about
Yeah,
it.
but
Yeah.
during that encounter, I'm 6'5", and during that opportunity to meet the president, I got a photograph with him during that meeting, and he kind of looked at me and he said, "You're a tall one, aren't you?" And all I could say was, "Yes, sir, Mr. President."
Right. Yeah, he was an icon. He still is. Whenever he speaks, it gives me goosebumps. So hopefully we get back to that someday.
Mm.
America needs that for sure, for sure. Um, yeah. So you served public service as an officer. There's a lot of I'm proud of this generation. I'm not part of this generation, right? They're doing a lot of protests, at least talking about race and all that. And a lot of this stuff stem from uh, um, some arrests from police officers like you, like Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and all that stuff. What are your feelings on some of the protests there? Do you feel they're constructive? Do you feel positive about the way this generation's going?
You know, when I was growing up, um, it was during the time when there were a lot of protests going on. I was a young child and I watched it on television and, to see some of the things that were happening. And the peaceful protests serve a purpose.
Right.
And, there is an expression for uh, the opportunity for the decision makers to actually know what your concerns are, what your feelings are. I see no purpose in people actually going out and getting violent and destroying their own neighborhoods and things of this nature. And I do not feel that the majority of the people protesting are of that mindset. I think that there is something that they want to draw attention to, and they're going about and they're doing it. One of the things that was most interesting about the protests of the civil rights era was that those people were actually trained
Right.
in how to proceed and how to go out and protest. And I'm not hearing of anything like that happening now. You know,
Right.
and so I guess what I'm saying is that there was a certain amount of discipline instilled in those early protesters.
Mm-hmm.
And, like I say, these days, you have people who go out and some people have their own agenda. I agree that, and, it goes back and it talks about, a lot of people talk about Black Lives Matter, and you have some that's saying that they're trying to exclude others and things of that nature. And that's not the case. Black Lives Matters is a focus. You know, Black people realize all lives matter, but because of what's happening now, they feel like they need to draw attention to the plight of Black people and what's happening to them in the criminal justice system. Um, I think some of this goes back to in my training, when I first became a state trooper. What was instilled into us is that we served a dual role. Number one, we were guardians. Number two, we were warriors. And when you apply that, the vast majority of the time, that's what you're doing. You took an oath to serve the people. And that's what you do as a guardian. You serve the people, you protect the people, you protect their rights to, their life and their property. And in doing so, uh, you have to respect them. You have to give respect in order to get respect. And I told people, in my 30 years, I can count the number of times on one hand that I've actually had to put my hands on someone. But it's so much about how to de-escalate a situation. And it never mattered to me if you were young, old, Black, white, male, or female. My conversations always started out, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And, sometimes you get people and they would get to the point, you could tell sometimes over the encounter, they would be angry. But if you respond in the same way, all you're going to do is escalate the situation.
Right.
So, that's the way that I had been trained. The troopers that worked up under me, that's what I did my best to instill in them. And, during my tenure, uh, we had one situation in which a trooper used, well, no, it was two situations in which they ended up, we had uh, basically a deadly force. One was an accidental discharge. The other was a trooper encountered a young guy that was extremely violent, and he was attempting to disarm the trooper and take his weapon from him. So, you know, they ensued and basically it was a fight for his life. And other than that, you know, from the state police standpoint in Alabama during my tenure, we had no use of deadly force. So, you know, is so much of it depends on, I feel, the training. I think in some instances you have things kind of changed after 9/11, you know, and the way that law enforcement start looking at individuals, it seems as if some start to take on more of that warrior attitude.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that influences a lot of decisions.
Yeah, I totally agree that the way, and even, you know, even I, as a brown man, like police officer would talk to me, and you know, it would seem like he had something, you know, a chip on his shoulder or something like that.
Mhm.
And to some point, like when I was in the military, there were most of the time we were training, you know, and I know as a police officer, you're maybe training 3 hours, and then I mean, you have the academy, and then after that, it's just you're learning on the job, and there's not a lot of training on how to talk to people, even, you know. And then if you talk even to the guy who's, you know, getting busted for drugs, you talk to him with respect, you know, that you're gonna de-escalate the situation, make their life easier. So I totally get that, and that's gonna be my story. So that's fantastic. Who said that? I appreciate that, sir. So, um, yeah, and you talked about the civil rights movements from today, and what differs, and uh, you know, I see a lot of Caucasian people in the protests. Even so, like even if it's like a lot of times it's not even coordinated by African Americans. It's coordinated by white people, um, um, and some people feel, you know, I think a lot of my conservative friends think that's not necessarily a good thing. What's your take on, like, you know, a vast amount of white people, you know, taking on the lead in protests? Like, oftentimes I feel like it's a hateful vibe, and it might give you you know, give African Americans a bad name. What's your feeling on that? Have you observed that, or is that a vibe that you feel?
Well, you know, the thing that I see is that I think over time, uh, relationships and understanding have evolved. I think that the reason you see and a lot of other white people involved in these is that they recognize right from wrong, you know,
Great. Yeah.
and they think that is you know it's time that they speak up. You know, from the time that I have grown up and up until now, you have uh, more of the, well, I want to say, society has come to a point where it has brought more people together to understand the different races. Uh, when I was growing up, you know, I went to started out in school. There was one school for whites, one school for blacks. Now, you know, some of that barrier has been broken down because people, you have shared educational experiences, you have shared social experiences. And I think people are getting an opportunity to, um, uh, as they socialize more, they begin to understand each other more. And then they start to see some of these things that uh, maybe from the standpoint of the African Americans. I think African Americans are starting to see some things from the standpoint of Caucasians, and that's enabling them to go out and see what they think is something that's wrong, and it needs to be addressed. It needs to be fixed. And it's kind of like you got a shared platform there.
Right, definitely, definitely. I like to say like America without Jimi Hendrix, America wouldn't be America, right? It wouldn't be rock and roll. There wouldn't be a lot of things without Black culture, and like for people not to appreciate that is ridiculous. So I'm glad people, of all races can appreciate each other's culture. So that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
If you notice, even in some of the protests you've seen law enforcement officers,
Yeah,
working with the people.
yeah,
And see that in so many instances, I think that what ends up happening is that what your expectations of someone are determines their attitude and their performance. If you're in a leadership position and you've been in the military as a captain, if you had low expectations of the people below you, that's what you got. You got low performance.
right, right.
If you have high expectations, their performance level is going to be high. You know, but that's the thing that you got to put out there. That's the thing that in all the positions that I've gone back and held, it didn't matter if the person there was black or white. My expectations was nothing less than the best you can give me. Excellence.
Correct, correct. And that all starts, in my opinion, with respect. So, and I've learned that leading white troops, African American troops. Like even though if I'm the boss, if they don't respect me, they're going to be a little apprehensive to follow me in battle. So, yeah, for sure. What else do I have? Oh yeah. So yeah, I think you have a tough job coming up. It's not going to be a fun time, but it's you're the man for the job. So there's unemployment coming in, stimulus and all this stuff. There's going to be a lot of different things that you're going to have to look at. So what will your approach be? I know it sounds like a radical idea, but I know there's been stimulus from other mayors of various towns, such as universal basic income or stipends or stimulus checks. But how would you bring jobs to your community in that?
Well, the thing that, and you have to realize we're in a small town in rural Alabama.
Right, right.
And the things you have to realize is what assets do you already have? And right now, the one of the biggest, probably the largest industry in the area is timber industry. Then you got agriculture, and then you got tourism. And the thing that I've been going back and saying is that have got to look at how to go back and start to diversify, not only the industry, but we got to diversify the workforce. And one of the things that happens there is going back and a better educated workforce. And we have to start looking at things that the future of this country is when it comes to employment is in the service industry and in technology. And I was telling some people, I think as more technology comes into place, especially in the manufacturing process, and you've got so many robotic functions that are being performed. Some of the things that we've got to look at is the possibility of training people how to repair these things and keep them running. And if we can prepare a workforce like that, maybe we can attract a business That's what they specialize in. Because see, right now we got a lot of automated industries here in Alabama. You got Airbus down in Mobile. You got Hyundai in Montgomery. You got Mercedes up in Vance, Alabama. You know, you got all these plants. So much of that stuff is the production lines are automated. So I see that being an opportunity. I was reading an article the other day where it talked about the millennials and how they are looking for opportunities to move into small areas, small towns. You know, the cost of living is less, less congestion, and most of them they'll do work from home. Well, you got to be prepared for that. You got to bring in broadband so that they will have the connectivity to do that type work. And that's some of the things that we're discussing here now. We're discussing how to expand upon the tourism. You know, well, Monroeville is known for the To Kill a Mockingbird play and Harper Lee and the writers symposiums and things of that nature. But at the same time, we have a lot of natural resources that can be available in tourism industry. You know, we have a lot of different types of outdoor activities that people can participate in. I mean, man, like there's walking trails. There's areas that the Corps of Engineers have set aside that, you know, people can have access to. Right now, we have a gentleman that's making a big investment in Airbnb properties, you know, to attract that tourism in. And at the same time, we've got to go through and look at how to expand upon our agriculture because there's so many things that we produce here, but we ship it all out. So
Yeah.
we got to start looking at how to recruit, you know, some processing plants. It's a small industry that a small business is preparing to start here, but what they're going to do is, you know, process uh, beef and pork. And because right now in this area, if you want to get that done, you got to go 150 miles away. So, you know, is those type things. It starts out, I think, with maybe about 10 jobs. But 10 jobs can multiply into 20, 20 can multiply into 50, you know. And the reality is right now, you're not going to go back and attract these huge industries that's going to employ 500, 600 people here. That's just, you know, it would be great if it would happen, but, you know, to me, that's not the reality. So we gotta focus on the small business and how to attract them and what incentives we can offer. And you know, when you're in an area like this, you have to offer tax breaks and things of that nature because I don't know of a small town in Alabama that can actually go back and offer you any type of you know, cash incentive or anything of that nature, you know, to come. We have an industrial park. We have buildings that are there. Yes, we can offer you that space, you know, and the way you do it is to bring them in at um, for a certain period of time, you know, they you offer rental uh, incentives or lease incentives, you know, things of that nature. Because what you're looking for is to circulate that dollar in your community. You know, if you spend $1 in your community and it's only circulated there for a couple of days and it's gone, it hasn't really benefited anybody. So you got to circulate that dollar. I think I heard somewhere if you can circulate that dollar within your community for about 14 days, then that dollar is going to help another dollar to come in and be circulated. So you know that's one of the things that you have to take in consideration when you're trying to help revitalize, you know, your business industry.
Absolutely. That sounds like a pretty comprehensive, well understood plan. So fantastic. But when you said diversify, you mean like, do you mean jobs, or do you mean or just race or
Well, really is both.
right?
You got to have people who are uh, have multiple. Well, you got to have people that have different skills in order for so many things to happen. Um, if you look here now, there is, and I don't think it's just here, I think it's throughout the state, that you have people who are not mastering skills such as carpentry and plumbing and things of this nature, and it is can be a very good living. But you got to provide the training for them, and you got to provide the opportunity, especially in the public education side, and open it up to where whites, blacks, anyone has the opportunity to learn those skills and learn those trades. And it even goes back down to where you start talking about and looking at contracts. On the federal side, there are things out there that they offer contracts to minorities. And when I say minorities, I'm not just talking about race. I'm talking about to women also. You know, and so those are the type things I think that in the future, if we look at that, it's a possibility to attract industries who are owned by women and by minorities.
Yeah, fantastic. I totally agree. I think one of the things, oftentimes people are too busy working to get education to move on to the next step. So if you could provide that for them, or I don't know, I think Jill Biden said something in 2016 where community college should be free. I totally agree. There should be something where people can learn a trade and then like not starve and not have their family lose their house, over that. So I think that's big.
When I went to school, I went to college. There was a program out there that they called it BEOG. It was Basic Economic Opportunity Grants. And it was awarded to people who uh, uh, so much of it was based on your family income, but it provided a lot of opportunity to people to be able to go to school. It did not pay for everything, but it was such a big help. It wasn't a student loan, it was a grant, you know. And so you were not caught up in having to pay that back. And, that helped me get my education. And I would like to see something like that once again. That opens up the doors for so many people, you know. And I had the grant, but this was the other thing. I also worked to help get my way through college. I wasn't dependent on anybody else. My mother was a single parent. My father died when I was 5 years old. And, I realized that if I wanted to accomplish these things, I had to go out there and make an investment in myself too.
Absolutely. I think you see that a lot. I had to initially put myself through college before I became an officer, and I was the first in my family to graduate college. So I appreciate that you said there. So 1 second here. Do you think, let's see here. Do you think if I reach out to Andrew, you could share that Obama picture that you have, or so I can talk about it in the article?
Yeah, yeah. I will. I will get that to AJ,
Yeah, sorry.
and where you can share that. Yes.
Great. I meant to say Anthony. Sorry. Let's take a look here. We got about a couple minutes here. So, let's see here. Integrated. You went through segregation, but can you describe a little bit? And maybe this will be the last point because we're running out of time here. But can you describe a little bit about how you guys transition? I'm just trying to, as a neutral observer, how do we get to equilibrium as far as race relations and all that? So how did Monroeville? I don't know if you spent the whole time there, but how did Alabama or Monroeville in general kind of extend and then get into a better situation where there's more equilibrium, more racial acceptance to where you could be a mayor.
Well, I think one of the things that helped was I grew up in Monroe. A lot of people knew me. They knew that at one time I came back, and Monroeville was Monroe County was my second assignment as a state trooper. And when I came here, uh, I took the attitude in performing my job. Nothing was based on color. I went through to treat everybody with respect, as I said before, and being able to move forward. Now, when I ran for mayor, I think one of the things that really helped was that as I went through the communities, I talked to a lot of people. I didn't get a chance to talk to as many as I would have liked to, because as I talked to them, they would start conversations. And I spent a lot of time listening, not only to blacks, but to whites also, and to get their input. And I think that was one of the things that helped put me over, put me over the hump, was because they saw that I didn't spend all my time in white community. I didn't spend all my time in the black community. I was open to everyone. Accessibility. I was accessible to everybody. I even posted on my social media pages, if you had questions that you would like to ask me, to put them up there. And I did have some people that had some questions, and the majority of them came from white people. And I answered them, and I answered them honestly, and was upfront with them about what I intended to do. I think that there was some fear out there that if a black person got in control, that based on the history of the South, that a black person would do to a white person what was done to them. And honestly, black people don't think that way. What black people do, all black people want is a fair shot, want a fair opportunity, And so it's not anything about revenge. And in some instances, that's why I had to go through and explain to people, they talked about change. Well, my message to them was that, change has to have a purpose. You don't go through to make change just for the sake of changing things. You can create chaos doing that. But change has to have a purpose. And that change comes about from listening to people to understand what their needs are. And that's what I did. And I gave everybody an opportunity. If you have a question about where I stood on something or whatever, I was just going to be straightforward with them. And I think that changed a lot of attitudes, and for people to see that my intentions is to be fair. I'm not going to come in here and get rid of a white department head just because he's white. I'm not going to put a black in a position just because he's black. I want to look at your qualifications. I'm going to look at your ability to do the job, and and see how you fit in to the overall picture.
Right. And yeah, I know, I get that. I guess they don't want to see their livelihood go away as well, so that's important to them. And I think in this generation, they're all right with that. I think one of the finest leaders I ever worked for was an African American. So it was So I appreciate you, and then what you're going to be able to do, and I know you're going to do great there.
I
So
appreciate that.
yeah, the finest leader I worked for was African American, and he taught me a lot of things about doing the job, but also being a human being, and that's who I am today because of him. So I appreciate that. But yeah, I think we have less than a minute, Anthony. So I'll
If you have
probably
any more questions, I can make another Zoom link or upgrade it real quick. Or
see here. I think I'm good here. We answered all my questions, and so I'm going to reach out.
I'm gonna tell you real quick about an experience I had as a small child. My father was still living. I was probably about 5 years old, and we were living down in South Monroe County, a rural part. And there was a car that pulled into our yard one night. My dad was asleep, thank God, because who knows what would happen. But I saw the car. I didn't wake him up. They left. When I got up the next morning and went outside with him, someone had burned a cross in our yard.
Oh wait. And do you have Anthony? You want to make another room here?
yeah, I will. Yeah, hold on one second.
I just got to get this story, and then we gotta. That's important to me. So if you want to make,
I'm gonna send a link to your email. Okay.
okay, sounds good, sir.
All right.
I'll be right back, sir. Yeah.
All right.
Videos together, so I can send them to you. Want me to?
Okay, that'd be.
All right. Cool.
I think Charles needs to start his video or something.
Okay, I'm back.
There you go.
Hey, sir. Yeah, no. Just before, I think a lot of people, for them to come back from trauma, a lot of people don't come back from that, and for you to come back from that type of trauma, and you were just a kid, I'm sure, speaks a lot about you. But it doesn't matter what race you are. If you have that trauma in your life, a lot of times that ends you. That makes you a different person from then on. So and maybe you can talk about that a little bit, but and also finish that story about what happened to your father there.
Yeah, well, like I said, we had gone to bed, and I've always been a light sleeper. And when these car lights pull up in the yard, we where we were, it was direct access to our house from public road. And my father, when we were growing up, he owned a country store, and he was a farmer also. And I don't know exactly what transpired, but this particular night, after we had gone to bed, he was asleep, and I slept in the same room that he did. And when this car pulled in, the lights just lit up the room, So I woke up and I'm looking over here, and I didn't wake him up. If I had, got him up, there would have been a confrontation. There's no doubt in my mind. But, like I say, the next morning we got up, and that's when, somebody had gone out there to proceed to burn a cross in our yard. Now, you got to remember, this was like 1960. And so that was during the period of time of intimidation and things of this nature. And see, in 1954, my mother, Geneva Andrews, was one of the first African Americans to register to vote here in Monroe County. So, and then my father, he knew a lot of people. He was involved with a lot of people. And I don't know if that was an attempt to intimidate him or not. But, later he, like I say, he passed away and later, and we moved away from down there. This was in South Monroe County, a small community called Eliska. And have no idea who it was, anything of that nature. But as we moved and we came to Monroeville, my mother, she did substitute teaching. She also did household work for some whites. I had an opportunity to converse with them. And as I was growing up, I experienced things where I go into a service station, and I didn't understand why at the time, but I could read, and the water fountain said white only, you know. And and then, it leads on to the opportunity where when To Kill a Mockingbird was produced, we had a theater in Monroe. It was segregated. All the blacks had to sit in the balcony, and everybody had been talking about it. And so my mom wanted to go see it, and that was the first time that my little brother and I had actually gone to the theater. And didn't quite grasp why we had to sit up in the balcony and everything, but that was part of segregation. And over time, as schools desegregated and everything, part of that I experienced busing, because the high school that I went to, it was in a black neighborhood, and when desegregation came about, they actually closed that school. It was one of the newer schools in the county, but they closed it, and so we ended up being bused to Monroe County High School, which had been before then all, predominantly white. So, that is where I came along, and we really started to uh, associate with whites. And, during the time that I was growing up, there were some that we associated with. There were some white people that came to our house with our mother, because she was a seamstress also. And so, we had opportunity to associate with them. And there were some, the insurance agents and all these, they were white, but we never had a problem with them. But as time moved on, here in Monroeville, we all began to assimilate to a certain degree, because in order to get away from busing, they actually opened a private school, Monroe Academy. And but blacks were, I don't know of a black child yet that goes there, So, but if you can afford to send your kids to a private school and that's what you want to do, this is America. That's your freedom of choice. But, the thing about it is that eventually we all come together. When you leave and you go to the University of Alabama, you go to Auburn, any of these other colleges, guess what? You're all there together. And I think, that goes back, and it has changed a lot of thinking, when young people start to get on that level at the colleges and everything, because you start to get a different perspective on life, and you start to become more receptive. And I think that goes back to what you talked about a little earlier, about now you see blacks and whites out there protesting together. But that was, interesting. And like I said, when I came to Monroe County as a state trooper, I was the first black trooper to work this county. But I never, I never had anybody. I don't know what was said in private, but nobody ever threw in racial slurs or anything like me at me during the time that I was working here. But I think that goes back to the point that, when you're given respect, it's hard for people to come back and disrespect you. And that's what I did. I always gave respect to everybody. So, but there were other things. See, as a kid, I remember looking on TV and seeing the report come back, and I think it was Walter Cronkite. Seriously, about Bloody Sunday in Selma. I saw that as a kid, and never had dreamed that at some point I would become the head of that agency that fought those people back across that bridge. And in so many ways, I've come back and I realized that I've been blessed, because I had a young lady from Knight Rider that came and interviewed me after I became the first black major. And we were sitting there, we were talking, and I had said before, well, yeah, I was lucky and everything, but then I came back and I realized that luck didn't have anything to do with it. I was blessed, and the reason I say I was blessed because I go back and I think about all of the people who made the sacrifices. All of the people who were beaten back by the troopers on Bloody Sunday on that bridge and everything. For me to sit in that position, I held the position, but it wasn't mine. It was theirs. I was just a representative of that, and it's the same way with this position as mayor. There were others who came here before me. There were people like uh, Mr. Willie Frank Marshall, Ezra Cunningham, H.B. Williams, who were members of the NAACP here in Monroeville, and they went through to challenge the status quo. And so even though I sit here in this position as mayor, I'm holding the position, but I'm representative of all those people who made those sacrifices.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just to clarify, so Monroe Academy. That, okay, so there's no African Americans in that academy right now, or is this? I can check that, but it's very Caucasian academy within the county. Okay.
Yeah, it's private school.
Yeah.
So it's up to you who, I guess, the board of directors or whoever who let someone attend.
Yeah. I guess if you got the money, you can attend it. So okay, great. And then when you talked about the integration of, was it Monroe High School? You said
It was the school that all of the blacks went to up until 1970 was Union High School.
Union High School. Okay.
Right. Previously, it was the Bethlehem Industrial Academy. And then it became the public school system took it over and built Union High School.
And this was in 1970. They built Union High School.
Well, Union High School, it was actually built before then, but that's when it was closed in 1970, and then we were all sent to Monroe County High School.
And that's a Monroe County High School. Okay. And then that's when the integration you talked about happened.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And this happens today. Like the segregation, like this happens in New York too, or like there's a lot of affluent white parents that influence the school board to draw lines and all that. So it's a big deal to me to kind of address that and the current nature of that. So I'm gonna look into Monroe Academy here. We have academies here too, so it's a similar situation. Not a lot of Latina or Latinos can afford the academy, so that's interesting to me. So I thank you for volunteering in that.
Yeah, all of the public schools here, there is one county school system, and black and white attend all of the public schools.
Yeah. Yeah, when they get to Alabama or Auburn, the star is often the star of the football team, often African American. So
Yeah.
So what else? Do you have any other stories here that make me kind of illustrate you and your background, or was that big? The balcony was a good image too, like that you had to sit in the balcony there. And yeah, that's crazy. It's a totally different time.
Yeah.
You're about 20 years older though, so.
Eventually, we got down to the point where we were all sitting on the same level, But as I said, over time, things got better. They are. I'm not one to ever say I do not know of anything that's perfect. So I can't say that everything's perfect, but it is better. On occasion, different issues that arise, um, and people express their opinions on them. But like I said, as moving into the future, the one thing that I told everyone is that I want one Monroe. I want us to be united here in this city. And I see that as being how we'll be able to move this city forward.
Absolutely. That's well said, and it makes I will not misrepresent your intent there and anything on my story there. So just let you know that. So uh, fantastic. And you got anything else for me, sir? Any
I
nuggets?
think I think you've pretty much gone back and you covered um, the complete timeline, you know, for
Yeah.
my story, really. Because we've gone back and we come from 1960 to the present. So
That's you've lived a good life, sir. So continue to live a good life, and I'll reach out to Anthony about those pictures, maybe some other pictures, so I can describe it in the story. If you got anything interesting to look at, maybe some places like special to you or something, or some significant picture, then that'd be fantastic too.
Okay. And quick question, Michael,
Sure.
real quick. So, when you was in high school, right?
Yeah.
Did you get Martin Luther King Day off?
We did.
Okay.
And then I got, I got to a point where I graduated and all that, and then I worked at some places, and it wasn't a holiday at some places.
Right. So you know the school he told you about, MA,
What's that, MA?
Monroe Academy?
Oh,
Yeah, they did not get Martin Luther King Day off. Yeah. So I mean, take it how you want it, but yeah, that's how. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not my background, is like that type of stuff. It's like in your face, but it's not overtly racist. But
Right.
I'm from Chicago, and we're very open and diverse there.
Right.
And then you go to a place like Arizona, and like they don't have Martin Luther King Day off, or as an optional holiday. It's like,
Right.
why?
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Right.
so, and I lived in the South, so I know. I lived in South Carolina, in Columbia. I lived in Louisiana. I had a friend who was white, and she worked at an insurance agency. And then there was another white woman and said, "I can't believe something about Latinos," or something like that.
Mhm.
And she didn't know that her husband was Latino, and like she's like, "What the fuck?" Like, so, yeah, I think going all over the world, it helps me understand. Like, not a lot of people know that this is different in different places. Because if you're from
Right.
Chicago, you're like, there's
Yeah.
a lot of racism. Like,
Right.
it might happen, but like if you lived in the South, or you might experience it.
Right.
Um,
Michael, the one thing that I'm experiencing now is that people are very receptive of me. You know, and like when I was going around and I was talking to people campaigning, there were some people that I would talk to and talk about some of the things that I wanted to see happen. And I don't know if you ever experienced this before, but have you ever looked in somebody's eyes and you start seeing a little twinkle, like hope?
right, yeah,
I was seeing that,
yeah,
you know, and I think that um, I saw it on both sides, black and white, you know. And like I say, I think that a lot of people, that's what they were talking about. They were talking about change, and that's why I told you earlier that I explained to them, change is good, but it's got to have a purpose, because if you just change stuff to change it, you're headed for chaos.
right. And that it's been a lot of chaos under Trump. I can't really editorialize or get close into it, but yeah, it's there's been a lot of chaos, and yeah, I think we're going in the right direction. Like you said, there's a twinkle, and people realize, right? Like, okay, these businesses here in Phoenix, like they'll post little black squares on their Instagram, right? And I'll go there, and there'd be no black workers. It'll just be like all white women, that work at that restaurant, right? Because they want to make they want to make other white men go in there and make, get a lot of money from them. But there will be no diversity or anything like that. And to me, I think people are realizing that and putting the narrative out there and holding, I don't know, not other, just people in general, politicians in general, and you got to hold businesses in general, like to that standard too. Like you need to hire Black or minorities, and like it needs to be a priority because I think for too long it's been, they've been, they hire who they're comfortable with, right? And it's oftentimes it's the twinkle in their eye of the white girl that gets hired, and like you're not comfortable with me, but you really need to think about why you're not comfortable with me or why you're not comfortable with you during the interview. It's because you have a subconscious bias that you need to get over. But yeah, I think we're going the right direction.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, my dog's going insane right now, so I apologize, but I'll let you go. And it's been an honor, pleasure. You can do great things. If you ever come to Arizona, you have a home here, and then you can go out and eat. So I appreciate it.
And I'm gonna text you because I have your number and just ask for any pictures you need. I got you.
Sounds
all right.
Cool.
Thanks, Charles.
All right. See you later.
Okay.